The nights here always seemed longer than they should have been. The lanterns shone with a dim yellow light, as if they were afraid to illuminate what was between them. The shadows from the trees stretched on the asphalt, broke on the cracks and disappeared under the fences of private houses. The first corpse was found at 2:17 a.m. His name was Daniel Wright, 34 years old, an accountant. He was walking home. This was indicated in a separate line in the police report, as if the very fact of walking at night mattered. His body stood near the metal fence of the old playground. It didn't lie. It didn't sit. It was exactly standing. The hands were lowered along the body. His fingers are slightly bent, as if at the last moment he was going to say something or grab the air, eyes open. The look is empty, fixed at one point in front of you. The face was calm. Calm. The forensic expert was silent for a long time, looking at the body, and then said softly, "There are no signs of struggle. No injuries. The cause of death cannot be established." The only thing that didn't fit was Daniel's shoes. It was perfectly clean, no dust, no traces of earth. As if he didn't come here, as if he just appeared next to the fence. There should be a camera nearby. 3. All 3 didn't work that night. 3 days later, Emily Carter, 22, a student, went missing. At 11:41 p.m. She left the night shop, holding her phone to her ear. The friend heard her voice clearly. "I'm almost home," Emily said. "It's so quiet here. Even strange." Wait, the connection was cut off. Emily was found 2 blocks away. She stood under the wooden fence of a private house. A surveillance camera from the neighboring yard recorded the moment. On the video, Emily is walking on the sidewalk. Stops. Slowly turn your head to the right. There is a man under the fence. The figure is motionless, too low. The face is hidden in the shadow, as if the light simply refuses to show it. Emily takes a step back. The next shot is already standing in front of her. I can't see the movement. I can't see the transition. He's just there. After 0.8 seconds, the video stops. When the police arrived, Emily stood the same as the first victim. The phone was clamped in the hand, so tightly that the screen cracked from the inside. There was a fingerprint on the glass. He didn't belong to her. The case was handed over to Detective Mark Holloway. Mark did not believe in the legends. He believed in mistakes, sick people and fear. But when he looked at the photos of the bodies, he had the feeling that the victims had died before they died, all of them, with themselves depicted at night. They stood, when they were found, looked right in front of them. It was as if someone was standing opposite them. Very close. The third was Sarah Milton, 41, a nurse from the night shift. A witness from the house opposite said, "I saw how she stopped at the fence. Looked down. I thought there was a cat. And then she screamed." But the scream was strange, short, as if she saw something and realized that it was too late to run away. When the police arrived, Sarah stood, eyes open. The tears have already dried up. There was nothing under the fence. Later that night, Mark himself stood near a similar fence. Silence was pressing. The lantern crackled. He looked down. Under the fence is a silhouette. Mark blinked. The silhouette disappeared. My heart was pounding in my chest. He took a step back. And felt a presence right in front of him. He didn't come back, because now I knew. If you see him, it means he's too close. Detective Mark Holloway noticed the first pattern at 4:36 a.m. All the victims looked down. Not at the time of death. Before. Cameras, witnesses, last calls. Everything came down to one point. Before this happened, people stopped and looked under fences, gates, under courtyard fences. As if something was there. The police began to check all the crime scenes again. Fences, cracks in the concrete, the slits under the gate, even the gaps between the stairs. Nothing. But something else appeared. The fourth victim is Thomas Reed, 29. A courier didn't have to walk. He should have been in the car. He was found on the side of the road, near a long fence made of old metal sheets. The car was 50 meters away. The door was open. The engine was running. The recording from the chest camera of a neighboring patrol captured the moment when Thomas got out of the car. He said to himself, "What ... Why is it there ... He approached the fence, bent over. I looked down. The camera did not record exactly what he saw, but I noticed how his pupils dilated sharply. No, he whispered. There was no next frame. The camera fell. When the body was found, Thomas stood. His neck was slightly tilted, as if he continued to stare at something in front of him, even after death. This time, the forensic expert said a phrase that no one recorded in the protocol. They all died of fear. But not of panic. It was a different fear, deep, conscious. That same night, the first recording from the inner camera of the house appeared. Rachel Moore, 37, woke up at 3:12. She didn't leave the house. The camera in the corridor captured her slowly getting out of bed, as if someone had called her. She walked barefoot without turning on the light, stopped at the back door. Behind the door is a fence. She leaned over. I looked into the crack under the door. Her lips began to tremble. "You shouldn't be here ... she said very quietly. The camera did not record how he entered. The next frame is that he is already in the corridor. In front of her. His face is blurry, as if the camera can't focus it. Rachel stood still for another 17 seconds. Then the camera turned off. She was found in the morning. Standing. Mark didn't sleep anymore. He reviewed the recordings over and over again. And suddenly I realized what everyone missed. He didn't move. He appeared where he was looked at. Not under the fence, not in the shadows. And in the field of view. Mark made a note in a notebook, in capital letters. "Don't look down, don't bend over, don't look for him." But it was too late, because the police have already decided to use live bait. At 1:48 a.m., Officer James Keller stood by the fence with his camera and walkie-talkie on. "I see a crack under the fence," he said. "No wonder. Pause. Wait. There's someone. Mark shouted in the walkie-talkie. "Don't look down, James. Don't look." I could hear breathing. Slow. "Alien. He ... double quotes," James whispered. "He's already here." The connection was cut off. When they came running, James stood. The eyes are open. There is empty air in front of him. And under the fence, for the first time ever, a trace remained on the ground. The imprint of a human face. As if someone had been watching from there for a very long time. Detective Mark Holloway realized the main thing too late. Everyone was looking for him, not there. He didn't hide under the fences. He didn't live in the shadows. He didn't come from outside. He waited to be seen. After the death of Officer James Keller, the case was to be closed. Officially, mass hysteria, unknown toxin, psychological effect of fear. The cameras are gone. The records were damaged. The witnesses refused to speak, but Mark couldn't forget one detail. No victim blinked in the last seconds. There were not even reflexes. As if the eyes no longer belonged to them. He started working on his own. Mark watched each frame slowly, frame by frame. I noticed a moment that others missed. When the victim looked down, something was watching in response. Not the face, not eyes. Presence. As if there was a place on the other side of the crack where the perspective was breaking, where before and after did not matter. The last victim of the silence was Laura Bennett, 19. She knew the rule. She texted her friend at 0:58. "If I hear something, I won't look, I promise." The camera from her room would her lying in bed. Silence. Then the sound. Very quiet. It's like someone is slowly sliding their nails on a tree. She opened her eyes, but I didn't raise my head. "It's not real," she whispered. "It's just a sound. One more. Closer." She sat on the bed. He closed my eyes. "I don't see you," she said. "You don't exist." Pause. And then ... step. Not loud. Not sharp. It's just very close. Her breath was straight. "You can't," she said, already crying. "I'm not looking." And then the camera captured what was not supposed to be. Shadow. Not from the body. A form that didn't exist. She stood in front of Lavra. The camera showed no face, but she showed how Laura slowly opened her eyes. and I realized the mistake. She was found sitting. The eyes are open. The hands are clenched into fists, so hard that the nails broke through the skin. Mark came to the final conclusion at night, sitting in the darkness of his own kitchen. The light was off. He didn't look down on purpose. He doesn't need you to look at him. He needs you to realize he's here. Eyes are just a door. At 3:33, Mark heard a sound from under the kitchen table. Slow. Friction. A breath that didn't belong to a person. He didn't look. He closed his eyes. I know who you are, Mark said quietly. You're not a maniac. You. A reaction. You appear when you are waiting. The silence became thicker. You only exist when you're afraid to see you. Something was very close. So close that the air became cold. I'm not looking, Mark whispered. And I won't. Long pause. Then the retreat. The sound disappeared. In the morning, Mark was found alive. The only thing he left in the notebook was written in uneven handwriting. If you look, it's already in front of you. If you close your eyes, he will wait. The case was closed, but sometimes, late at night, people can still hear the sound under the fences, under the door, under the beds. And the worst thing, don't look, because now you know. He stands where you imagine he stands. After that night, Mark Holloway disappeared. Officially, took a vacation, then resolved. His apartment was empty, without traces of struggle, no notes. Only a notebook left on the kitchen table. The last page was clean, but when they looked at it from an angle, under the lamp, a barely noticeable press text appeared, as if the words were written without touching the paper. You don't stop him. You replace the space where he appears. After that, the death stopped. Not right away. Gradually. First, a week of silence. Then a month. Then a year. People calmed down. The cameras are working again. The fences were painted. The slits under the door were covered with rubber strips. Children were no longer allowed to play at the fence at night. Fear became a memory. Memories are weak. The first strange signal came 2 years later. Video from the surveillance camera. Night. Empty yard. Nothing happens. But if you look at it for a long time, there is a feeling that the camera is looking back. The analyst wrote in the report, there is no object, but there is a distortion of depth. As if the space in front of the camera. Waiting. Then there were the messages. People began to write the same thing independently of each other. I didn't see anything, but I know where he would stand. They didn't die. They just stopped. For a few seconds. Sometimes for a minute. Stood. They looked straight in front of them. And then they continued to live, but something changed in them. The last entry appeared by accident. Old camera. Archive. File without date. Kitchen. Darkness. Table. Chair. And Mark Holloway. He sits still. The eyes are open. He's not looking at the camera. He looks a little lower. If you're watching this, he says calmly, it means you've already imagined where he's standing. Pause. It's not him anymore. The light is shaking. When people stopped looking down, Mark continues, the space remained empty. And something had to occupy him. He smiles, slowly, wrong. He was a fear. And I became a place. He tilts his head. Now he does not appear under the fence. And where you stop looking, the camera focuses. And for a moment it seems that Mark is standing closer than he should. Don't close your eyes, he says. It doesn't help anymore. The recording is interrupted. Today, people are no longer afraid to look down. But sometimes they catch themselves on the other. On the fact that they look at 1.4 too long. And it seems to them that between them and this pointless distance than a second ago. Because now he is not a maniac. Not a shadow at a creature. Now it's waiting. And if you read it to the end, you already know where he is. Don't look back. He's already there. Ethan switched the main camera to hand mode. The frame was now typical. A little from below, a little from behind. In the light of the lantern, see the backs of Mark and Lucas, their shoulders, backpacks, as in all the popular night studies, which he himself has watched hundreds of times. I'm filming from behind, guys. If anything happens, it's on camera, he said. Mark looked over his shoulder. Yeah, famous last words. They went deeper down the corridor. The camera recorded how the dust rises with each step. Only the following could be heard: steps, light creak of the building, and Ethan's breath in the microphone. Suddenly, the light flashed, not completely disappeared. Just a sharp flash of darkness for a fraction of a second. What the hell was that? Lucas said, and stopped. Ethan instantly pointed the camera forward. In the frame, there is an empty corridor. The lantern shines evenly. No movements. Probably my flashlight, Mark said, but did not move. After a few steps, they reached the old ward department. The door was open. Inside there are rows of beds without mattresses, rusty bedside tables, and children's drawings on the walls still preserved. It was the worst. Ethan slowly panned the room with the camera, as large channels do, slowly, without sudden movements, allowing the viewer to look for something in the dark. And then the camera near the stairs, which they had left earlier, clicked. That was the other camera, Lucas said. It shouldn't be recording motion, Ethan replied. I turned that off. They looked at each other. Mark walked closer to the door of the ward, but suddenly stopped. Guys, what? Ethan turned the camera at him. One of the cameras, Mark swallowed his saliva. The one near the stairs. It's not on the feed. Ethan took out his phone and opened the app. Really? One camera is online. The second is offline. Maybe lost signal, he said quickly, but his voice trembled treacherously. At this moment, the zoom on the phone came a little closer by itself. Ethan didn't touch the screen. Did you just zoom? Lucas asked quietly. No. They froze. The camera in Ethan's hands was still filming from behind. 3 people standing in the middle of the room. Their shadows stretched out on the walls. And then somewhere far away, in the depths of the hospital, there was a dull noise. Not steps. Not a full dot. It's like something was pulled on the floor. Mark laughed nervously. Okay. That's new. Let's check the stairs and grab the camera, said Ethan. Then we leave. They left the room. The camera filmed their backs again. The corridor seemed longer than before, darker. When they approached the stairs, there was no camera there. Only a trace in the dust, as if it had been dragged deep into the flight of stairs. Lucas whispered. We didn't move it. The silence around became thicker. And then, a short sound, as if someone exhaled quietly somewhere nearby. Lucas whispered. We didn't move it. The silence around became thicker. And then, a short sound, as if someone exhaled quietly somewhere nearby. Ethan's camera continued to film. And in the background, in the depths of the frame, for a moment something moved. They didn't speak for a few minutes. Ethan walked first. The camera was still filming from behind. In the frame, the backs of Mark and Lucas, a narrow corridor, shabby walls. The light of the lantern slid over the door with room numbers that had long lost their meaning. Let's just get out, Mark said quietly. This place is done. Lucas did not respond. Lucas, Ethan turned around the half-body, but the camera only captured his shoulder. Lucas stood a little further away, by the open door, and looked inside. I heard something, he whispered. Like ... whispering. You're imagining it, Mark said sharply. Come on. Lucas took a step back, and at that moment the light flashed again. This time, longer, when the lights lit up again. Lucas is gone. What the hell? Mark turned around abruptly. The camera recorded an empty corridor. The door is open. No movement. Lucas called Ethan. There was no answer. Only a faint sound somewhere below, as if someone was slowly going down the stairs. Mark ran to the flight of stairs. Lucas, this isn't funny. Something else came out of the darkness. Not a voice. Dry cough. Ethan felt the cold running along his back. We need to go. Now. He pulled Mark's jacket, but he broke away. He wouldn't just leave. At this moment, Ethan's phone vibrated. Message from the camera app. Camera 2. Online. No. He whispered. A video from the stairs appeared on the screen. The camera was lower than before. It was as if someone had put it on a step. And in the frame, at the very edge of the image, part of the leg was visible. Not Lucas single quotes dot a thin dot to immobile dot Mark saw it too. Ethan dot dot dot. He said quietly, "Don't look behind us." The camera, in Ethan's hands, continued to film. And somewhere in the dark behind Thea was another breath, very close. They walked quickly down the corridor, almost running. Ethan held the camera, so that only Mark's back was in the frame. His shoulders were tense. His movements were sharp. "Don't stop," Ethan said. "Just don't stop." "I need a second," replied Mark. "1 minute. Now." Ethan paused. "Are you serious?" Mark was already standing at the door with a half-erased restroom sign. "I'll be right back." "Don't move." He disappeared inside. Ethan was left alone in the hallway. The camera shot forward, but the sound recorded everything. His breathing, the faint hum of the building, the dripping of water somewhere in the pipes. A minute has passed. "Mark," he called quietly. There was no answer. 1 more minute. Ethan walked closer to the door. The camera shook a little. "Dude, this isn't funny." There was a rustle from inside the toilet. It was as if someone had run their hand over the tile. Mark. Silence. Ethan gently pushed the door. It was dark inside. The lantern snatched a row of old sinks, mirrors without glass, cabin doors. Everyone is open. Mark wasn't there. His lantern was on the floor. On. Ethan stepped back. The heart was beating so hard that it could be heard in the microphone. No. 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 And then in the back, somewhere in the corridor, a step sounded on. Then another one. Slow, confident. Ethan turned around abruptly, the camera showing an empty corridor. But the sound didn't stop. The steps were too close. He turned around and ran. The camera was shaking. The walls, doors, and shadows were flickering in the frame. The breath broke into a wheeze, and somewhere behind, in the midst of the noise of his running, a familiar voice sounded. "Ethan. Wait. It was Mark's voice. But Mark could no longer speak. Ethan ran, not understanding the road. The corridors merged into one, the same doors, the same cracks on the walls, the same smell of moisture and old medicines. The camera shook so much that sometimes the frame disappeared in the dark, but the sound did not lie. Heavy breathing, hitting the shoes on the tile, panic curses. No. He stopped abruptly. There was an entrance hall ahead, the same one they went through. Reception desk, overturned chairs. "The clock is on the wall." Ethan lifted the camera closer. The arrow no longer showed to 17. Now they stood at to 16. "That's not possible. Double quotes," he whispered. Something squeaked behind me. Not a step. It was as if they were slowly pressing on the door. Ethan turned around abruptly. Empty. He ran to the exit. The door they went through was closed. Not just closed, blocked. Someone propped them up from the inside with a heavy metal cabinet. "We didn't do this." The voice broke. The phone vibrated again. New footage available. The video appeared by itself, without his actions. Ethan opened the file with trembling hands. The recording came from the same camera they had lost on the stairs. The camera was in the corridor. Immovable. Lucas slowly entered the frame. He walked strangely. To flat. The eyes looked straight into the lens. "Ethan," said Lucas from the screen. "Why did you leave us?" The screen went out abruptly. In the same second the light came on in the hall. Not a lantern. Old lamps under the ceiling, one by one, with a characteristic hum. Ethan was not alone. On the other side of the hall, near the corridor, there were 2 figures. He didn't see their faces, only familiar silhouettes. "Guys," he whispered. One of the figures took a step forward, and she said to him in a voice, "Don't run." The camera continued to shoot, and there was no way out. Ethan stood motionless, the camera in his hands, no longer trembled. As if the fear had turned into something else, cold, empty clarity. The 2 figures opposite did not move. They were just waiting. The light in the hall was buzzing. The old lamps were flashing, but not extinguishing. The clock on the wall clicked again. Tick. Ethan slowly lifted the camera higher, pointing the focus dot. It was Mark and Lucas, but not really. Their faces were pale, as if the color had disappeared from them. The eyes are dark, and naturally calm. They stood too straight, without the usual movements, without the small gestures of a living person. "We're still here," Lucas said. "You just ran." "That's what everyone does," added Mark. "They always leave one behind." Ethan took a step back. "You're not them," he whispered. Mark tilted his head. "We're what stayed." The clock stopped abruptly. 17. The air became thick, heavy. Sounds began to come from the corridors, quiet, numerous, as if the entire hospital was breathing slowly. "It doesn't like being empty," Lucas said. "It needs witnesses." The light behind Ethan's back went out. The only source of light was the camera. "If you leave," continued Mark, "the footage stays. Someone else comes, again, and again." Ethan understood. Video. Canal. Views. The hospital knew how she was being found. "And if I stay?" he asked quietly. They both smiled. "Then it ends." The camera slowly went down. The frame showed only the floor of the hall and the legs of 3 people. Ethan took a step forward. The recording was cut off. Epilogue. The video appeared on the channel 3 days later. The name was simple. "We shouldn't have gone there." No description. No author's comments. The last 10 seconds of the video. Empty hospital hall and the clock on the wall. He stops. At 2:17.